Hi golfers, Rob Cheney here from GOLFTEC Singapore. Today's video I'm going to discuss with you why all the hard work and effort that you're putting into your long game practice is killing your short game.
Swing. That was a good swing.
So this is a really common issue that I see among golfers who try to transfer their training from their full swing and their full swing practice into their short game, but with disastrous consequences. So if you're someone who struggles around the green in terms of making good contact, difficulty controlling distance, stick around, because in this video I'm going to discuss the reasons so many people get this wrong, and share with you a couple of ideas that you can implement into your short game practice to transform it from a weakness into a strength. So let's start by clarifying what I'm discussing when it comes to the long game practice that I see commonly misunderstood and transferred into short game, causing issues regarding strike. If you followed along recent videos, you'll note that I've spoken about the wrists a lot, and in general terms, a lot of golfers are struggling with their ball striking because at some point during the swing they get this club face too open and end up having to slice across the ball. Generally speaking, that makes them poor ball strikers, it makes them slicers, it means they don't hit the ball as far as they want to. So a lot of my lessons are geared towards helping people closing the face to the path to reduce that slice, to improve the spin loft that they deliver to the ball, which means increased smash or increased distance. And in closing the face to the path, we either eliminate that slice or we start to incorporate more of a draw shape to the ball, which is very desirable for a lot of golfers. And one way that I would speak to players about doing that is a drill where moving from P1 to P2, in the takeaway we get the hands and the club to trace the grid, keeping the club face more or less turned down towards the ground. And this is a great drill. I've done videos on this before. I use this in a lot of lessons, helping people to move the club from P1 to P2 in such a way where they don't start opening the club face and causing problems down the line. But unfortunately, that same concept of taking the hands inwards and closing the face isn't necessarily the best strategy for short game. So if we jump on the mat now, I'm going to grab the wedge and show you where people get this wrong. So there's some fairly important differences when it comes to chipping and pitching around the green than when we're making a full swing. We're not necessarily and almost never trying to maximize the smash factor or the power transfer from the wedge to the ball. So we're not looking for the same alignments, so it's not the same shot. But a lot of golfers get stuck in this cycle of finding a swing thought or a swing feeling that works for them and wanting to transfer that across to every single shot in their bag. A number of times I hear the question, is it the same for the driver? Is it the same for the irons? Is it the same for the hybrid? Is it the same for my wedges? Because deep down we're all clinging on to this idea that there's one magical swing thought or feeling that's going to solve all of our problems. And that's just not true. So where people go wrong with this exercise with the short game is by getting the hands and the club very often to suck inside too aggressively, get the club head behind their hands here at P2 with the club face turned down or very closed. They're doing a number of pieces here that are going to hurt them. First of all, by shifting the swing plane so far into out, moving the swing path into out, I'm moving the low point of my swing back. And in short game, that's pretty disastrous. You're going to have a lot of problems where the low point of your arc wants to happen before the ball. If you've experienced that, you know that that's chunking, you know that that's fat and thin shots. You can easily top the ball from there as well because you get so adverse to hitting the ground behind the ball that in your next attempt, you're so scared to hit the ground that you start to lift up, pull up, and thin the ball across the green into the bunker on the other side. So shifting your hand and club path too much to the inside as you try to replicate your draw practice swing is a definite no-no. Secondly, as players do this, they also close the club face. We spoke in last week's videos about some of the wrist movements. They tend to very easily deviate the wrist, which widens the radius, closes the club face, And now, even if I was to make contact with the ground in more or less the correct place, I'm presenting so much more of the leading edge to the ball or to the ground that my likelihood of digging or chunking into the ground is greatly increased. So I've made my margin of error here with my short game very, very small by moving the club back in such a way where I have the club face so closed and the path moving so far into out. And even if I do make good contact, which can of course happen, the smash factor or the power transfer that this type of swing produces is such that the ball comes off extremely quickly, and that then makes controlling trajectory, spin and distance a real lottery. So what should you do? Well, for me, one of my favorite modifications for short game is to employ a specifically different grip for chipping and pitching. What I mean by that is I like to see a golfer have their hands turned. If I'm a right-handed golfer, I'll explain it in this context. I'm going to move my left hand further to the left. So as I look down, I see literally 0 knuckles, and my right hand is going to climb more on top of the grip than I would ordinarily do for a standard shot. This is sometimes referred to as a weak grip. It's referred to as weak because what this does to the club face in terms of the natural rotation that now occurs throughout the swing, it weakens the loft, which is great because that's exactly what we want to do for short game. I already said we're not looking to increase the smash factor. We don't want this ball coming off super quick. One of the best ways to soften the contact and reduce the distance that I hit this ball is to reduce the smash factor, and I do that by having a club face that's weaker, or said another way, more lofted. So with my modified grip, as I stand and start to swing back, one of the things that happens much more quickly and almost automatically is my wrist, my lead wrist, wants to go up and into a bit more of extension. Now, we talked about this recently in the full swing wrist videos. Extension in that lead wrist isn't something that's very desirable in a full swing. Certainly not if you're trying to hit the ball as far as you possibly can, and certainly not if you're trying to draw the golf ball. But in chipping or pitching, it's very desirable. It opens the face somewhat, reduces the smash as I've already mentioned, and exposes much more of the sole and the back edge or the bounce of the wedge. So as I swing back from my new grip, my wrists move in a different fashion. I extend this lead wrist more, my club face is now more open to my path, and as I come back down to deliver this to the golf ball, I'm able to really throw the club head very aggressively under the ball like this, release my lead wrist into more extension on the follow through, and start really bouncing the club off the bottom of the mat here, and that would replicate on the grass as being very light bouncing or bruising of the turf. And if you want to take this a stage further and just ensure that you're controlling the path of the club head, then you can put a stick in the ground. I'm using the Tour Striker plane station that we use here at GOLFTEC to help control swing direction. If you're practicing outside, you're fortunate enough to be off the grass, you can simply stick an alignment tool or alignment stick in the ground. And you want that to match the shaft plane more or less, so that as I swing back here, I'm standing closer to the ball for this shot, it's a shorter club, and you're going to swing back. My hands and club, while they're tracing an arc, they're moving around me. They're not moving straight back in a line like this. They're moving back in the appropriate amount. I can measure that, I can regulate that, and I can monitor it with feedback. And if I was to start sucking the club back in too far behind me, I'd hit the stick, or my club would go underneath this rod, which would be incorrect. So to summarize, much weaker grip. Turn those hands way to the left. So much so that the right palm should feel like it's facing downwards when it's on top of the grip. Now that I'm in that condition, as I start to swing back, my hands really naturally want to rotate and open this club face somewhat, because they feel like they want to get back into their original condition or their original position that they were in. So by starting with them more turned to the left, in my case as a right-handed golfer, immediately as I start to swing, my wrist hinge, a very functional wrist hinge, is somewhat being taken care of for me. I don't even have to think about it. So hands turn to the left, right hand much more on top, move the club back, feels fairly straight. There is an arc, but it feels fairly straight. And then as I come down to hit the ball, I'm just going to let that club release and my lead wrist go back into that extension on the follow through. Really nice, gentle little shot. It's gone 20 yards. Lots of opening of the face there. I could feel that as I took the club back. Really nice interaction with the mat. This is also a really great way to buy yourself more margin of error. Hitting slightly before the ball with this technique will allow you some room for error. You won't be penalised as much as you would have been when you were presenting much more of the leading edge of the club to the ground. So not only will your good shots get better, but your mishitch should improve too. So, you know, really give that a try. If your short game's giving you problems, try not to just think about this as being a small adjustment from what you do in your full swing. Consider the fact that this is a completely different shot, and therefore it's okay to consider a completely different setup, completely different grip, and what might feel like a completely different swing. Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you found it useful and informative. Maybe you're able to transfer some of those thoughts, some of those things maybe apply to you, and you're seeing some similarities in terms of how you're trying to practice with the long game versus how maybe you should be practicing with the short game. If you have additional comments or questions about the differences between long game and short game and maybe how you should be practicing, please post them in the comments section down below. I love to hear from you. It's so much fun reading your comments every week in terms of how the videos are helping. So if you do have any questions, please post them down below. Quick update on the online lesson giveaway that I mentioned in last week's video. I haven't announced the winner yet, but I will be very shortly. I asked you to get me to 10,000 subscribers last week. You went even better than that and got me to 11,000. So hugely appreciative of the support. Every single view and every single like, every single comment, I read them all, I reply to them personally. So thank you very much for the support, it means a lot to me. I will announce the winner very soon in the coming days, so if you did comment on the video last week, look out for that. I'll mention it in the comment section, and I'll be sending details of how to send your swing videos through to me very soon. That's all for this week's video. If you enjoyed it, please click the like button and consider sharing it. If you're not already subscribed, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. I will see you all very soon for another video. Stay safe out there. Hopefully you'll be out of lockdown soon and able to play more golf. And remember, spring is just around the corner.